Bienvenidas, comadres.
Bienvenidas, comadres and friends, to our April 2020 teleconference podcast. This is Karen Gonzalez of Las Comadres para las Americas, Denver Book Club coordinator. We wish you and your families health, safety, and love. We encourage you to put laughter into your life. Prayer and laughter help us relieve stress. I suspect we all need all the help we can get. Podcasts are now uploaded to our website. Feel free to download to listen to any of your favorite interviews. Mil gracias to Comadre Dora Abreu for doing this labor of love for us. Our April 2020 teleconference celebrating Dia de los Niños features Book of the Month author Pablo Cartaya and conversations with authors Stephen Wolfe, Pereira, and Susie Jaramillo. Due to scheduling requirements, we will start our session interviewing the conversations with authors. But first, a bit of history about our book club. Our first book club gathering was in July 2004 in New York at Comadre Maria Ferrar's apartment. After a hiatus, it was restarted in March 2007. Comadre Johanna Castillo, at that time national organizer of the book club and former Comadres board member, said, "We are launching the book club to promote the work of Latino authors to every book lover, to bring our community to bookstores, and to support our writers. Now more than ever, we need to support our Latino authors. We encourage you to join our local book club in your city. We have clubs in 12 cities. Austin has 3 area book clubs, and if your city doesn't have one, why not help us start one? For more information about our book club, visit our website at latinolit.com. These teleconferences, Reading with Las Comadres, started in 2008. Although we actually started the teleconferences in October of 2006, we are in our 14th year. We've created the Reading with Las Comadres teleconferences and book club in an effort to entice everyone to read more Latino authors, to learn about Latino roots and different perspectives on Latino cultures and heritage. Our book club and teleconferences are open to all, not just Latinos. We are creating a space for everyone to explore the Latino writer's mind and soul as portrayed through the written word, so invite others to join us. We are very grateful to the publishers, Penguin Random House for Young Readers, and Encantos for their support of this teleconference with gratis books. For more information about the authors and publishers, visit our website at latinolit.com. The interviews tonight will be conducted by Atlanta Comadre Julia Abrantes. About the conversations with authors, Stephen, he is a purpose-led leader with a passion for diversity and inclusion. Stephen is dedicated to creating beloved family brands inspired by underrepresented cultures and with universal appeal. Recognized by Adweek as one of the 50 most indispensable executives in marketing, media, and tech, Stephen has over 20 years of experience at the intersection of technology, entertainment, advertising, media, and marketing. Susie is a creative visionary, an artist, an entrepreneur, and a mom. When others see problems, Susie sees opportunity and builds beautiful and creative solutions. This is, in fact, how she entered the world of publishing, as she couldn't find books that helped her kids relate to her culture in a deeper way, with true cultural roots. She is the creator, author, and illustrator of Canticos. Canticos is a collection of the most beloved nursery rhymes and children's songs from all over the Spanish-speaking world. Canticos creates bilingual books, apps, and sing-along videos. Features titles such as Little Chickies, Los Pollitos, Little Elephants, Elefantitos, Little Mice, Ratoncitos, The Birthday Book, Las Mañanitas, Little Sunny Sunshine, Sol, Solecito, and My Little Donkey, Mi Burrito. Our interviewer, Comadre Julia, is a stalwart of Las Comadres, who for many years nourished our New York City comadrazos with love and passion. She is an avid reader and attends all the book conferences possible to learn about books by Latinx authors and to share this info with our comadres, compadres, and friends. Julia and Edgar now live in Loganville, Georgia. Comadre Julia, take it away.
Thank you so much, Karen. And Susan and Stephen, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
It's our complete pleasure to be here.
Okay, so I'm going to do a mini interview on each of you, and we'll start first with the the Canticos books. So, Susie, can you elaborate a little bit more for our listeners on where the idea of the Canticos books came from?
Sure. So I was at the time working in an advertising agency. It was a company I built that really serviced Latino community in media, right? So it's a lot of the ways that Latinos would see themselves represented on TV commercials.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I regularly pitched, the Hispanic opportunity. We've got so much buying power. We spend more than the general population. And I was pregnant with my second child, and I was looking at the numbers where it's really 1 out of every child born in the United States today, and out of every 4 children born in the States today is Latino, believe it or not.
Wow.
And Spanish is the second most spoken language in the world. And I grew up in Venezuela, and when I was very little, they sang a lot of the Latino nursery rhymes to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed my friends singing those same nursery rhymes to their children. And it struck me like a bolt of thunder. Why were those nursery rhymes not brought together in a beautiful series of board books? I mean, here, the best way to expose children to our culture and to our language is through play. Play being, easy, interactive ways that children can experience our culture, can experience our language.
Mm-hmm.
And yet the only way I could expose them to my language and my nursery rhymes is through these, really dense, compilation books that aren't really fun for little kids. And then it struck me, it's not fair that everything cool is in English, right?
Right.
And then if you want to have, board books in Spanish, you've got to do, Dr. Seuss in Spanish, Sandra Boynton in Spanish, right?
Right.
And that didn't seem fair either. Why are we always translating, European nursery rhymes into Spanish, like Old MacDonald Had a Farm, or,
right.
Twinkle Twinkle, or all these other Row Row Your Boat? How come no one is singing Little Chickies in English, right? How come we're not singing? And where is our collection of board books? Where is our collection of apps? Where is our culture? And
right.
how is our culture being preserved and being brought to this next generation of Latinos that really need to grow up as proud Latinos in this country,
mm-hmm.
right? And need to really stand on their 2 feet, proud of their culture, proud of their language, proud of who they are. How do we empower those children? How do we empower those moms? And so this idea of putting together a beautiful collection of board books that would make us proud of who we are, board books that would showcase our culture in the most premium way,
mm-hmm.
That was really the genesis of Canticos. And I decided to pull out the Little Chickies and start there, porque Los Potitos, realmente it's a song that we all sing, right?
Right.
So that was the genesis of it all, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, I love these books. Of course, I can share with our readers, I interviewed Susie for the International Latino Book Awards a few years ago, where she was awarded for, I believe it was the birthday book, Las Mañanitas.
We won a few awards that night.
Okay.
Las Mañanitas, Fieletitos won an award. It was a few, but it was all good.
It was wonderful. And so,
mm-hmm.
I mean, you've taken these books, which are beautiful, and for our listeners, if you haven't seen them, please go ahead and go online and get yourself one, and check out their website. And Maria will share our website on the Twitter feed, the Encantos website. But the books are just absolutely beautiful. The illustrations are wonderful, and I regress back to being a little kid singing all the songs as I've seen them, which is wonderful.
Claro que sí. And honestly, it was really exciting for us when we were able to turn those board books into an animated series, right?
Yeah, and
so
how did that come about?
No, it was really exciting because, once you have a good thing, people want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so Nickelodeon came knocking on our door, and they were very interested in what we were doing. And we were lucky enough to where Latinos really embraced our books and really supported us. And that of course, is really, makes you feel like you're doing something to serve the community. And
right.
We had always envisioned Canticos as something that would bring generations of Latinos together. as well as Latinos from different countries, and expose non-Latinos to our language in a simple way, and, you know, our culture as well. And so it was really exciting to have the opportunity to bring these chickies and all of these different characters to life for the animated series. But it was even more exciting when we were Emmy nominated, right out of the gate, and when we beat out Sesame Street twice for Kids Screen, right? So that was really, really exciting. And so we do have all of the videos on canticlosworld.com, so you can definitely check them out there. And we have a slew of new books coming out that use the art from the animation. And so that's exciting too. And of course, we have a special discount for Las Comadres. If you go to our website through Mother's Day, you get a 20% discount if you use the promo code Comadres. So definitely check that out.
And we definitely appreciate that. So that's great. So you already answered one of my questions, was how did the videos, progression into videos comes, and Nickelodeon is a great place. And I remember finding your videos, and, you know, I subscribe to it, so I see, and my grandchildren, my youngest grandson now, he's 9 years old, but I've shared your video and your videos and your site with tons of my friends who are now becoming grandmothers, or, you know, so that they can share these songs with their children and their children. So it's a beautiful thing.
Super, super important to us, and I have to thank you for that, Julia, because we really we grow only with the support of the community. And you know, if you go to canticlosworld.com, not only will you see the books, but you'll see, you know, we have plush bilingual musical toys. You know, I think this might be the first time that bilingual plush has been done like this, right?
Yeah.
Where you have little chickies that will sing you songs in English and then sing you songs in Spanish. So, you know, we're just getting started with all that we want to build with the world of Canticos. But we really appreciate your support and the support of the rest of the Comadres.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how did you and Stephen meet and start to collaborate?
It's a funny story. Way back in the day, I tried to hire Stephen. I was running the advertising agency, and I wanted a strong business development person, someone with a strong business sense. And we had this wonderful chat about, because we both love culture, right? Something that Stephen and I have in common. We're both super passionate about our culture, and all that. There's so many stories to be told in our culture, and told at a premium level, so that everyone appreciates our stories. Our stories should make our children proud to be Latinos, and make our people proud. Absolutely. And they should just be really attractive to other people as well, right? So we want stories that make Latinos look good to non-Latinos, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It makes other people interested in our culture. And so that is why we started Encantos. And Stephen, I reached out to him after I sold the agency. I took 2 years off to draw. I'm an artist by training. I went to Pratt Institute, and I believe that an artist truly fulfills themselves when they serve their community. And if you can find a way to do what you love to do what you do very well, serve the community, and find a way to make money off of it, well, then you have found your purpose.
Wonderful.
And when I realized that I really wanted to build this brand, I reached out to the person who I thought would understand the business opportunity the most, but also get the importance of what this was, because he was feeling it too, because he had just had a baby boy. And so I reached out to Stephen and said, hey, look what I'm working on. And kind of the rest is history.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I'm glad you two got together. And Stephen.
Yes.
I want to talk to you a little bit now about the Tiny Travelers books, which I absolutely love. These are such fabulous books. The art is wonderful, and all the little history. So how did you come about the Tiny Travelers series?
Yes, well, first off, once again, thank you for having us. We're super excited to be a part of this, and we just love what you do. So thank you for being just a true leader in our community.
Gracias.
And two, everything that Susie says, is just so, I feel, sincere and spot on. And, yes, she's being very humble. She actually started one of the top 5 multicultural creative agencies in the country. Susie is an Emmy-nominated director, producer. She is an artist, illustrator. So it is so rare to find talent that is truly, just kind of a superhero, right? They could do so many different things. They have so many superpowers. And I just feel lucky to be working with Susie on that front. And she really is my partner in purpose because, yes, she did try to hire me to be her CFO, over 15 years ago. And that conversation was, it was just super, kind of stimulating. It captivated my imagination because I was actually going to work at Univision and, the whole idea of doing something entrepreneurial. I have worked in finance. I've worked in technology for, over 15 years. I've worked in both large and small companies, but I was always intrigued by what Susie was speaking about, and it really is understanding the power of culture. Mm-hmm. And how can you leverage the power of storytelling and really infuse it into, either content or products or technology. And in this case, we're using the power of entertainment and technology to reimagine education. But it wasn't until I had my first child that I really appreciated that. And that's where I really had my aha moment in 2015 when I had my first son, Sebastian. And it was just like, wow, what are kids actually learning today?
Right.
This is Generation Alpha, the first generation born in the 21st century. And these 21st century kids need to learn 21st century skills.
Right.
And I think if I had not gotten into business, I probably would have wanted to be a teacher. So I love to teach, and I just always have been really interested in education. And when Susie reached out telling me about Canticos and what she was working on, I just thought, wow, what a great opportunity to kind of, bring these, two incredible forces together, both the art and the science,
mm-hmm.
because I was actually working on my first brand, which was Tiny Travelers.
Wonderful. And so tell us a little bit more about the Tiny Travelers books.
Sure. So my family's from the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Proud Dominicano, with most of my family still in Santo Domingo, but I was born and raised in New York. And similar to Susie, I kind of had the best of both worlds. Growing up in New York, but I spent all of my summers and Navidades in Santo Domingo with family. And I ended up going to Tufts University for undergrad. I majored in international relations. I took Japanese for 4 years. And all my friends were very international, right? I was the president of the International Club. So it was really this kind of inspiration of, wow, we truly are citizens of the world. And
right.
Tufts being, one of the best undergraduate universities as well as graduate schools for international relations, I think I was really impacted and inspired by that, such to the point that I thought I was going to go work in development. And so I ended up actually getting a Fulbright. I lived in Mexico for a year, doing research on poverty alleviation. And I ended up just really having this love for travel. And I've now been to over 70 countries,
wow.
plus around the world. I've lived in Europe. I've lived in Asia. I've, really traveled all over. And you just really realize that this is truly the human race. We have so much more in common than we do in terms of differences.
Right.
And when I had my first child, it just hit me, similar to Susie, like a ton of bricks. There really is nothing for me to share my culture. And it was a bittersweet moment because my father had passed in 2011, and my mother, unfortunately, was on her last legs battling lung cancer, and she ended up passing in 2016. So it was really this kind of moment where you think of, how do you want to spend the rest of your life? How do you think about legacy? How do you think about family? And how do you think about your culture? And I just realized that I never saw anything growing up that celebrated the Dominican Republic, anything from where my country or, my family was from. And I just remember, being on the road so much, traveling for work, going everywhere. You would see the same countries over and over again. You would see, New York, London, Paris, or you'd see, things about the U.S. or France or Italy. kind of all the favorite tourist spots, but you would never see Dominican Republic.
Right.
You would never see Venezuela. You would never see, India or, maybe, a place in Africa or a place in Southeast Asia. It was just really eye-opening given all of my background. And so I really wanted to create a brand that would think about it as like one part Lonely Planet, one part TripAdvisor, and then kind of one part Goonies. I really wanted this sense of adventure. It was really almost, combating the narrative of it's a small world.
Right.
It's actually kind of a lie. It's actually a great, big, beautiful, diverse world. And I really wanted to showcase that. And so when we joined forces, the first brand that we launched was Canticos, and after its initial success, the next brand that we launched was Tiny Travelers.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal there is really to have the same type of way that we build out brands, both physical and digital products. So there will be books, there will be apps, there will be subscription services, there will be an animated series. But we really start everything we do with books by design, and we will certainly publish every country from around the world will have a Tiny Travelers book.
Well, I better clear out space on my bookshelves because I'm going to want them all.
Yep.
Well, it's exciting because we actually have, a whole bunch of titles, and now that we've seen like all this demand, like I feel like we've really like struck a nerve because you get to see countries. Again, the most traveled country on the planet is France, but you don't just have to have either popular tourist attractions or countries with large populations. You actually have smaller countries that have huge, proud populations like Puerto Rico, and that actually has been our top seller to date.
Yay! That's my country. I love this, and I love how you show all the different parts, and there's a little bit of everything in there. With Puerto Rico, with Mexico, and I also had the China book, and I saw you have quite a selection of titles coming out the rest of this year. How often can we expect a new title to be released?
So, are we talking BC or AD? Are we talking before COVID
Corona
or after disease? Or after disease?
Yeah.
We were on a really nice pace where we were probably going to be able to have a new country almost every month this year. Mm-hmm. And then heading into 2021, we were trying to get to a point where, the goal would be one a month, but realistically it might be, maybe every 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. It wasn't necessarily on our side. It was more on kind of production and, shipping and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So we were really excited, and we actually have already completed, the first title that came out, the first country was Mexico. So Mexico lindo y querido. Then we went to China, and then we did Puerto Rico, and India just came in, and we had Japan already just in time for the Olympics, and then United States, and then France, and then Nigeria. And so, we have our whole kind of cadence, our whole pipeline set up. But then, the pandemic hit, and so it kind of started first with China, impacting a lot of publishers and their, kind of book pipeline. And, we are actually our own publisher. So we are actually now one of the largest publishers focused on kids and family, where we have diversity, equality, inclusion at the heart of all we do. So we're really proud of that. But yeah, right now we're going to see how long it takes for, a lot of the pipeline to get back online. Right. But we will be selling as many of these books as possible through our website, tinytravelers.com as well.
Of course. Well, we'll certainly be looking for those. And you mentioned that there's going to be a series of television programs,
an animated
animated series.
Absolutely.
Wow.
One of the fun things is when you think of kind of all the brands that we're building family brands. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important to distinguish. Both Susie and I, we're both proud parents. Susie is an amazing mom, as every mom is, frankly. Yeah. And I'm a proud dad. I have a 4.5-year-old now. Sebastian is 4.5, and my daughter Sienna is 2. Mm-hmm. So I'm a proud dad. And I feel like we need more men to, kind of show that they are able to be proud dads and to balance, work and family. It's not just for, the mothers of the household. And I feel like maybe that's something that the pandemic is showcasing because, everyone has kids at home. And so when your kid comes onto a Zoom call, it just humanizes the whole thing. So it's not just, the moms that have to worry about kids. It's also the dads.
Absolutely.
But when you think about, everything that we're doing by design, we want to leverage the power of entertainment and really be smart about the power of technology, specifically things that could go direct to the consumer, like Netflix, all of these, streaming services, or all these e-commerce sites that are, going directly to the consumer. And we want to use those, kind of incredible platforms to reimagine education. Right. And I think that's the thing that's been really missing. When you really take a look at what kids are learning in school today, like it truly is so outdated, and the focus on standardized testing, kids are not learning, and it's no wonder that they're bored. You're living in a time where you actually have the most exciting, kind of entertainment and technology forces in the world, in history, and you're trying to make people just focus on one way to learn. And I feel like that is not what 21st century skills are about. When you think about learning skills and literacy skills and life skills, which arguably are more important than ever, how do you actually teach kids, bravery and grit and leadership and social emotional skills? These are the things that we want to make sure our brands have. And so we certainly start things with books, but we believe that all of our, brands have incredible appeal, and so there are animated series in the works for all of the brands that we're working on.
That's wonderful. That's really, really wonderful. And can you just, in the last couple of minutes here, tell us a little bit about the Encantos Learning Hub, which has been a wonderful item that I've sent out to many people during this pandemic when they're looking for new things for their children.
Well, this is something that we have always had learning at the core of what we do because we are a family entertainment education company. Mm-hmm. So, for us, it was very natural because if you go to the canticosworld.com website, we have been offering educators, librarians, parents, free resources for years. So when you go to the canticosworld.com site, you'll be able to see free activity sheets, and, we would have, kind of the lyrics to the nursery rhymes. There's all these free resources, right? Mm-hmm. Then the pandemic hits, and it's like, oh, my God, 9 out of every 10 kids around the planet are now stuck at home, and they're now forced to learn at home.
Right.
And this is really, we certainly didn't plan this, but this was our thesis, that every single industry is going to be transformed by technology, and every single industry must go direct to consumer.
Right.
And I'd argue that, our institutions are failing us, whether it's government or whether it's education. They are not built for the AI era, which is what we are entering.
Correct.
And I think there's going to be a role for brands to take a leadership role in helping families, especially with education, because they're not going to get the enrichment, the learnings, the 21st century skills that they need in school. Mm-hmm. And so parents are going to look for other resources. I mean, when you think about what we're doing with Canticos, there literally is no bilingual learning platform. How do you truly learn 2 languages at the same time? For me, I never understood in this country, why is it that you have to wait till middle school or even high school to learn another language, when all the science says that when you're, 8 and under is when you have the most brain plasticity and you actually have the best ability to absorb multiple languages. Right. So that's kind of how we thought about our brands. But when the pandemic hit, we thought that it was just a public service. And when Susie and I and our families formed the company, we actually formed it as a public benefit corporation. So this is us as a B Corp, but we took it a step further, similar to Patagonia or Kickstarter or Etsy. Those are public benefit corporations that actually make sure that they're not just focused on shareholder value, they focus on stakeholders. They focus on their community. And that was really important to us for building brands that are purpose-driven, that can serve, And so in less than 48 hours, we stood up the Learning Hub, and we basically aggregated all of the free, lessons, activities, and we started doing weekly videos for all of our brands. Canticos for bilingual learning, Tiny Travelers for social studies and learning about the world. And then we accelerated one of our new brands, which was supposed to come out next year in 2021, Issa's Edible Adventures, which is a wonderful brand with a half-Black, half-Indian little girl, and it's teaching about food, cooking, the science of nutrition, and culture. And those videos and lesson plans are now on there because guess what? All families are now cooking at home. So the spirit of the Learning Hub is just, again, let's help these families, let's help kids, parents, and educators, and if we can do our part, that's our way to serve.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Susie and Stephen, for talking with us this evening. I'm sure we could go on for hours. But to all our readers out there, please follow up, read these books, go visit their website, shop with that 20% discount that they were kind enough to give us through Mother's Day. And
that's actually for both brands. That's 20% discount for both Canticos. Go to canticosworld.com as well as Tiny Travelers. Go to tinytravelers.com and use the Comadres code, and you'll get a 20% discount because we so appreciate everything you do for the community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, Karen.
Gracias.
Buenas noches. Karen?
Okay. Yes. Pablo Cartaya is an award-winning author whose books have been reviewed by the New York Times, featured in the Washington Post, received starred reviews from Kirkus, Booklist, Publishers Weekly, and School Library Journal, as well as been among the best books of the year for Amazon, Chicago Public Library, NYPL, and several state award lists. He is the author of the critically acclaimed middle grade novels, The Epic Fail of Arturo Zamora, a 2018 Pura Belpré honor book, and Marcus Vega Doesn't Speak Spanish. His next novel, Each Tiny Spark, will debut on the new Coquila Penguin Random House imprint, which focuses on publishing diverse books for children and young adults. He teaches at Sierra Nevada College's MFA program in writing and visits schools and colleges around the country. Pablo is proudly bilingual in Español y Inglés. At PhDartaya. Comadre Julia, you're on.
Thank you. Compadre Pablo, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your patience today.
Oh yeah, I was listening to Susie and Stephen going on, and I was actually making a chorizo, a ground chorizo from scratch while I was listening to that great conversation. So.
Wow, invite us over. That sounds delicious.
Yeah, I know. I had un pernil. I got a pig, and I have a meat grinder in my house, and I'm hearing these great conversations, and I'm like grinding the pork, I'm grinding in the chong, and then I'm like putting the spices together, and I'm getting inspiration. So we're we multitask here in the Latino community,
That's right. We sure do. We sure do. Well, I have to tell you, I really, really enjoyed this book. And can you share with our listeners a little bit about the story?
Well, the story is the story Each Tiny Spark is very personal to me for a number of reasons. Primarily the main character, Emilia, is loosely based on my own 13-year-old daughter, Penelope. And Emilia, in the book, has inattentive type ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And my own daughter has inattentive type ADHD, and it was interesting growing up, as she's been growing up through school, she wasn't a kid who was disruptive in class, but it was difficult for her to focus. And a lot of the times, being a girl, what happens is that they kind of just sort of brushed her aside as like, oh, she's just a little bit spacey. Oh, she's not, oh, but she's sweet. She's so sweet, and not really ever kind of accommodating the kind of thinker, the kind of neurodiverse kid that she is, because she wasn't acting out. And that happens a lot with girls who have ADHD. They kind of get brushed aside for their male counterparts who are typically jumping off the walls. And so it was really hard. So she struggled a lot. And when I looked, I guess it all starts there, right? When you look for books that you can share with your own children, right? Because, where does it go? You try to find them, and if you don't find them, you do something about it, right? And I've been fortunate enough to publish, to be a working author and to have my life being, writing books, and especially for young children, for middle schoolers. And I said, you know what, I'm going to write a story, a fictional story that honors that type of neurodiversity.
Yeah.
And of course, I put all of the tenets that make all of my books, which are family, community, and culture. And what does that mean? That means la cultura latina, la familias, las abuelas, los tíos, like all of that stuff that incorporates, Latinidad,
right.
and so, Espanol, and then the struggling with Espanol, and having your abuela just only speak to you in Espanol, but you answer her in English, and it's like that sort of the way that I grew up as a Cuban American in this country, and my parents, born in Cuba, were exiled here, and oftentimes where sentences started in English and ended in Spanish.
Right.
And so I kind of wanted to combine that really with the focus on this kid who was, who was going through these sort of, who has this neurodiverse way of thinking, right? But also is just living and trying to figure things out for her world as an American living in this country, And I was so touched and so honored when the American Library Association honored me with the Schneider Family Book Award, which is an award that is given to the best representation of the disability experience in the United States.
Wow.
And I got that honor. I got the book award honor, and it was really cool because and it wasn't even something that I thought about, because I'm so embedded in the kind of work that I'm doing. It wasn't even something that I thought about, but what the committee told me afterwards when they called me and said, look, you've been honored with this, with the Schneider Family Book Award honor. And I said, they said, Pablo, we have not read a book that not only exemplifies the disability experience in a novel for children and young adults, but also that it's a Latinx character.
Right.
That you know what I'm saying? Where that is ancillary to what the experience is. You know what I mean? And we were just so pleased with that, and that really, that really said something to me. Number one, what a great honor, but also, why is it 2020 and you can't name that many books about the diversity within the diversity?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
because a lot of times the Latino experience is like, okay, well, you either you came from X country and it was your parents or your abuelos came from this country and it was a struggle to get here, right? And then it's the assimilation story, right? Which is important and necessary. Those stories are important and necessary. But what happens to all the kids that are growing up here told, that they're living American lives?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
And they have disabilities and they have challenges and they have, their experience between cultures is profound, and so where's that representation? And so for me, that's really been a goal for me to write those kind of books, but this particular one started with a very personal connection to my own kid, and it expanded into this world of like, how do we really think about diversity children and the diversity within that diversity.
Yeah, I mean, and I totally understand you. Although I don't have children, I have 3 stepchildren who are all grown with children of their own. But when I go to book conferences, when I go to ALA, when I go to BEA, I'm searching for books that my grandchildren will find themselves in. You know, I'm searching for those books, and you know, so thank you for writing this, because this is something I definitely have passed on to my middle granddaughter, who also has ADHD.
And that's awesome, and
yeah.
I thank you for doing that. And you know, this organization is just, the Comadres are just, it's just amazing. It's so,
thank you.
You know, you give Latinas a mission, and they do it so well, you know. And I just and I love it, you know, and I love it, and it's a blessing. So I thank you all actually for putting it together, and I encourage, if you're out there listening, you haven't signed up, please do it, because it's amazing. It's really cool.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. We try. So you tackle a lot of issues in this book, not only ADHD, but the multi-generational families, you know, all living together in one household, learning disabilities, PTSD, working moms, you know, the school boundaries and integration and all that kind of stuff. Middle school angst, santeria, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. But you did it so lovely that
thank you.
A middle grade child will be able to read it, understand it, I thought, very fluidly. Did it take a lot for you, like when you were writing? Did you find that you had to like stop and say, okay, wait a minute, I need to think of this in this age, you know, how am I going to explain it so that I can get the story out and they would understand it?
I think more than anything, you know, the Penguin Young Readers is the large company, but the imprint that I publish each Shiny Spark with is called Coquila, as was mentioned earlier, and the imprint, the sort of the moniker for the imprint is centering stories from the margins, right? And so what does that mean is how do we create all of these stories, you know, the lush stories that exist in the world, and how do we bring them into children, young adult books, right? And so what I love about Coquila is that the editors, my editor has been with me for all of my middle grade books. And I just turned in my next book to her this morning, which I'm very excited about. But the Coquila imprint, they dare the writer to go deeper, right? And so they dare the author who has written the story. You know, like let's say I had gone and okay, I'm writing a story about a father and a daughter. The dad comes home from his last deployment. He's a little bit off from his kind of return to civilian life, and his daughter has ADHD, and they rebuild a 1968 Shelby together, right? That was the principal story. And then my editor and the publisher are like, okay, this is great. What more can we say about the world that she lives in, that Emilia lives in, the main character? What more can we say about, you know, the family that she lives with? You know, and as these questions were asked of me, I sort of built the necessary tools to go further, to go deeper. I researched a lot. I asked questions. I joined the American Welding Society.
Oh wow!
I spoke at length with former Marines. I interviewed with the Child Mind Institute. I went to several towns in northern Georgia and spent 3 weeks there, kind of going around and seeing what the towns were like. And so it's just like digging in further and further was, and as I went further, I realized that what children are experiencing in their lives is not a monolithic experience.
Correct.
It is not singular. Their experiences are not singularity, they're plurality, right? They're experiencing a dad coming home who is reintegrating into civilian life for the first time. It's a mother who is trying to advance her career in work. It's an abuela who's overbearing at home.
Right.
It's all the social pressures of school. Like, kids are dealing with that on a daily basis. I see my own daughter dealing with that. They're going through so much, and they're just trying to be kids, but there's a bazillion things being thrown at them at once, and they're managing that. So how would I be giving justice to their experience, to their honest experience, if I don't create the pluralities that their experiences exist in? You know, and so that's where I went with this book. I went really deep. I went far and far, and then actually the teacher, Mr. Ritz in the book, he says, dig deeper, and that was like a character that was basically telling me, the writer, keep going, dig deeper.
Yeah, well, I was amazed. I moved to northern Georgia. I'm 25 miles outside of Atlanta, and I've only been here 3 years, so I learned a lot reading this book. And actually, one of my granddaughters goes to Parkview Middle School, so I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So then
wow.
I found myself, I kept putting the book down and like looking up stuff. I was like, wait a minute. Oh, I didn't, is the town, was it Maryville?
Maryville.
I said, is this a real town? Is it right here? Wait a minute. Let me see. Am I living in Maryville? How close is it? Because we're all, within like 5 miles of each other. We're very close. My stuff.
And it's incredible. I have a passage that I love to read. Speaking of like Parkview and Maryville, is that she lives in this town. Emilia lives in this town in northern Georgia, and she is her abuela owns the only auto shop in town, right? She is a Latina, and she's a woman, and she owns the only auto shop in a town in northern Georgia.
I want to find it.
And she has built a strong outer casing to protect herself, and then later to protect her family, right? So that's something that previous generations have had to endure, have had to experience, right? For us, for the next generations to be able to enjoy, the freedoms and the abilities to, dare to dream bigger, But our abuelas and our abuelos, they kind of came before and had to make concessions for their own cultural identity, right? And and the abuela in this character has done that. And there's a line that she says, she goes, and in my house I can play the music that I want and cook the food that I want.
Yes.
But out there I have to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. And Emilia, right. And Emilia is 13 years old. She's like, what do you mean? Like, she doesn't get it. It's like, what do you mean? Right. And there's that sort of, there's that tug, right? Like, why is abuela, like, why are you so, like, pesada with everything? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I totally understand that.
And when, and when Emilia starts discovering things about the town, right? She loves the town. And when she starts discovering that the town that she lives in is both wonderful, but it also is a little problematic and has a bit of a problematic past.
Yeah.
it's this sort of contradiction, right? And as I was researching myself for the book, I realized, I'm like, it has one of the most diverse, the state of Georgia has one of the most diverse populations in the country.
Yeah.
And it is also one of the strictest immigration laws in the country. And that to me is, it's bizarre.
It's mind-boggling.
But that, and you get these small towns where there's a very clear line of separation, right?
Yeah.
The schools are not fully integrated, and because a lot of redistricting has occurred and all of this. Now what has happened is that because many schools, especially in where brown and black kids are going, right, they are getting overpopulated. And so now there's redistricting that's moving brown and black bodies into schools that are mostly white, and what's happening is that there's this white flight occurring.
Yeah.
Right. And as I was researching, I saw that happening, and I said, "Oh my gosh!" And then I thought even deeper. I said, "Well, you know what? Like Emilia's mom is Afro-Cuban, right? And her abuela, by her dad's side, they trace back to la herencia española, from Spain, And what happens, because it happens a lot, what happens when those two things tug at each other? What happens when the girl, the daughter, right, the granddaughter, the daughter, it has very curly red hair and is very fair-skinned, right?
Yes.
What happens to her identity then? Right? What happens even more to her identity when her best friend, Gustavo, who's from Mexico, right, who lives on another side of town,
right,
right, is going to be forced to move schools, right? And then her friend, who she's had since elementary school, this girl named Clarissa, who is white, Anglo-white, right, who is saying, well, why do you even care about that side?
Yeah, it's very difficult, very difficult. Today, when I see it, I've seen it since moving out here. I've seen it in the different schools, with the kids playing their athletics. One community may have a better field than the next community. And
all
the differences. It's very difficult to see. And I mean, I remember growing up. I'm almost 58 years old, but growing up, we had to learn English first. We didn't speak Spanish in the house, although my grandparents both spoke Spanish. They were from Puerto Rico. Both sets of grandparents spoke Spanish, but we had to learn English first so that we could speak it properly. And then when we got to middle school,
that's what happened.
That's when we started learning it. But we still had the cultural things. We had the pasteles. We had, the coquito, the pernil, all that stuff. The music, the traditions were still there. But we had to, because of what my parents, I guess, went through, or what my grandparents went through when they came here, when they came to New York from Puerto Rico, that's what was foisted on us. And so now, with my grandchildren who are and
it's what's hard about that is that you leave Puerto Rico, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go to New York and you're an outsider,
right?
And then you stay in New York enough time, you try to go back to Puerto Rico and you're an outsider there.
You're an outsider, correct?
Right. So there's this sort of feeling of displacement, and I had felt that. I felt that. I'm Cuban American. And when I was younger, I was like, my father was, he was a counter-revolutionary, and he tried to fight to get the island back, and then, he was exiled and all that stuff, and I lived that life through my father's stories, right?
Yeah.
And I was very much connected to that idea of what exile means. And I went, and I was talking to a woman who's Cuban once, and she was a teacher of mine, and I said, I feel like an exile, and she says, don't you dare say that. You don't get to claim that. And she said that to me, and it impacted me really hard. She goes, that's not yours to claim. Tú eres americano. You're American. And that hit me very profoundly because this whole time as a kid, I'm thinking like I can claim that sort of, having to leave the island or whatever. I wasn't born in Cuba though, but my father was, and my mother was, and my grandparents were, and that whole culture talks about what they left.
Yeah.
And so they pass that on, and they pass on the culture, and they pass on everything except being able to touch the sand. The sand, the earth is not yours.
Right.
Right? And so I looked at it like this. I said, that's what I am. I live in between the hyphens, Cuban and American, right? Because I'm American. I feel very American. I was born here. I was born in the United States. I have, lived a very American life. I played baseball. I did all that stuff.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though, is that I'm always reminded that I'm Latino to people who are Anglo. Right? And I have always been reminded that I'm not Cuban enough. And that hit me really profoundly throughout my life, and it's sort of this idea of living in the hyphen. When you live in the hyphen, where do you feel like you belong? Right? And as I was writing the books that I've been writing over the last 7 years or whatever, I realized something. I realized that I'm not, my existence is not stuck in the hyphen. The hyphen, the way that I see it now, is that it's a bridge. I am the bridge between two cultures.
Yeah.
And I get to claim both, and I also get to share the experiences of both and allow both to cross over me. And so my books represent that. My books really kind of touch on the minutes and the moments in between the hyphens.
Yeah, well, I think
right.
I think you did a great job with this book, and I have read your other books. The one that you won the Pura Belpre, the Epic Fall of Arturo. Arturo Zamora.
Yeah.
You've done a great job, and of course, we at Las Comadres thank you and Susie and Stephen for all that you do to continue to encourage our readers, our young readers, to learn about their culture, to learn about different things, to know that they are not alone with their disabilities or their special abilities, I'd like to call them, and for sharing all of this in your books. We thank you so much for that.
And thank you for doing what you're doing. We love you all.
Good.
I think that I think that it's really special, and I'm honored to be here talking with you all tonight.
Thank you. Thank you again so very much. Comadre Karen?
Yes, Comadre Susie and compadres Stephen and Pablo, we are so grateful for the insightful interviews and for spending time with us this evening. We enjoyed the sharing of perspectives and insights from your work and your life. We treasure the opportunity to learn about you, and we feel more connected to you. We thank publishers Penguin Random House and Encanto's further support of this teleconference and for their generous gift of books for winners of early registration. We thank our audience for taking the time to join us for this teleconference, and thank you for those that submitted questions. We'd like to thank Comadres Maria Ferrar for the media coordination and the Twitter chat, and to Comadre Dora Abreu for the web work she does for us. Without this volunteer leadership team, this book club and all the associated work would not happen. Mil gracias. Please remember to carry the books you are reading, always displaying the title, and shamelessly advertise what you are reading. Buy books to support our authors, and if your library does not have a book you want to read, ask them to order it. And please attend your local book club meetings and bring a friend or two. Remember, it's open to everyone, men and women, and not just Latinos. During these times of crisis, communication with publishers get a bit crazy, and our May 2020 books and authors have not been confirmed. However, teleconference is Monday, May 18th. We will advise about the books as soon as we are able to confirm all details. Look for the teleconference registration announcement coming soon. Mil gracias y to all y buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.